time for Voice of Indie. Your hosts today are Beem Weeks, author, producer, and marketing monster for independent multimedia publisher Fresh Ink Group, and Stephen Gies, author, producer, composer, and publisher for Fresh Ink Group.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Voice of Indie podcast. This is episode number 133. 133. Wow. I am your host, Beem Weeks, and with me is Mr. Stephen Gies. How are you doing down there in sunny Alabama, Stephen?
Oh, it's been beautiful down here. Everything's blooming. The trees, the bushes, the tulips, I passed a bunch of magnolia trees today that were just outstanding. And then we got all the daffodils and stuff in the yard. It's been really cool. But I've been under the weather for a couple of weeks now and still subject to coughing jags. So listeners, if you hear me cough a little bit, I'll slip out of the room for a minute or two and let Beem and our guest take over. But other than that, all seems to be good. I want to wish everybody a World Hippo Day. Happy World Hippo Day. And if you don't already have your orders in for Hippo merch, get out there and get them ordered now.
Yeah, they can go over to Amazon and find the Hippo Campus by Dr. Helen Burrell.
There you go. I'll bet her ears are burning. So anyway, we've got some books out. I know, we do books. We do books around here, and every now and then we actually put one out. And this one is the second edition of Karen Ingalls' Outshine, an ovarian cancer memoir, which she first released in 2012. Now here we are 11 years later, and she's put out a second edition, added another chapter, more resources, new information, and updated the whole thing and made it a Fresh Ink Group edition, which means that now not only can you get all those different ebooks, and including the Kindles and the Nooks, and soft covers, you can get just jacketed hardcover editions now. And she priced them very low, too, so they're very affordable. Get out there and check out Outshine, an ovarian cancer memoir by Karen Ingalls, who's a longtime friend of the show and of Beem's and mine. We just adore Karen. And everything that she does with this book is to raise money for cancer research. She's got a couple of events coming up in the next month or two that she's going to be doing that. So we applaud Karen's efforts and wish her the best of luck.
All right, yeah. We also have Redemption, A Father's Fatal Decision by tonight's guest, Gwen Plano. And that has a February 21st release date, but if you go over to Amazon and order it now, or anywhere, you can order it anywhere, until February 21st, it'll be delivered. But if you get it on Amazon, you'll get it sooner. So get over there and grab a copy, okay? If you want to be part of the show tonight, listeners, the drill. All you regular listeners, you know the drill. If you're new to the show, you can call in or you can go to Twitter and be part of the show with a question, with a comment. Here's how you do that.
Call 516-453-9902 right now with your questions or comments for tonight's guest. Or post a note on Twitter with hashtag Fresh Ink Group in the body of the tweet, and we'll read it on air. That's 516-453-9902 or hashtag Fresh Ink Group on Twitter.
All right. Books. You want books? We got books. We got another one out. This just went into pre-sale for a release date next month. It's going to be released on, I believe, St. Patrick's Day. And that's The Calling Dream by Carlisle Thoms, which is a long, in-depth, Ozark-oriented novel about a backwoods boy who grows up to be a preacher and gets caught up in all kinds of cool scandals and stuff. That's The Calling Dream by Carlisle Thoms. We've also got Sassy Uncovers Peter Allen's Secret by B.A. Johnson is now out and doing very well. And Barbara's got a bunch of events set up coming up in the near future, too. So that book is going over fantastically, as well as the first one in the series, Sassy Discovers the AME Church. So those are the Sassy books by B.A. Johnson.
Okay, and we've also got Operation Whiteout by Robert G. Williscroft. And Operation Whiteout is the fourth in the Mac McDowell series. And all four of those books are stellar. If you're into military thrillers and Cold War thrillers, this is right up your alley, I promise you that. So get over to Amazon and grab your copy.
And speaking of submarine books, I want to remind everybody we've got a book out there called Submariner. And that's by retired Naval Lieutenant Commander Jerry Pate, who was chief of the boats for a bunch of really cool submarine missions. It's a 60-chapter memoir about life under the sea, and Jerry tells it with panache. It's a fun book, interesting. Everybody's loving it, and he's to the point now to where he's getting contacted by media outlets average every couple of days, wanting to do interviews or review the book or things like that. So he's really getting a lot of buzz out there, and it's been pretty much, I'd guess, our highest seller of all of our books for the last couple of months or so. You know, every now and then a couple jump in there, like Mark Herndon's The High Road, and you know, maybe nudge it out of that top spot for a minute or two. But that book, Submariner, is doing very well, and that's by Jerry Pate.
Yeah. All right, listeners, if you need to know about these books a little deeper, we put this stuff in our newsletter. We also put in information about this podcast and all things Fresh Ink Group, and stuff that's not even Fresh Ink Group. It's just all things indie authors and publishing and all that kind of cool stuff. And if you're not subscribed to that newsletter, what are you waiting for? Here's how you can do that.
Stay on top of these podcasts and all things Fresh Ink Group with our weekly digital newsletter. New releases, videos, stories, excerpts, interviews, and more. Sign up now on the homepage of FreshInkGroup.com and be the one who knows what's what.
What?
You just can't help yourself, can you?
I just can't. It's official. That's when you know it's official.
That's when you know that the roll-in is over. So let's have a look at what's happening. Yeah, let's see what's happening with print bestsellers right now. We've got, when I printed out this rundown yesterday, I went and checked and put the stuff in there, and then I checked again just a minute ago, and the 5th slot has been replaced. For the past 2 weeks, Sassy Uncovers Peter Allen's Secret. It's been in that number 5 slot, and that's by B.A. Johnson. We just talked about that. It's the sequel to Sassy Discovers the A.M.E. Church, and it's an illustrated children's book. It's a chapter book, so it's not just, a short kids book. It's something that all ages of children can read and enjoy. And it's been doing very well, but it just got nudged out of that 5th slot by The Calling Dream by Carlisle Thoms, which we just talked about. Now, in the number 4 slot, Operation Whiteout, a Mac McDowell mission, 4th in the Mac McDowell Submarine Cold War Thriller series by Robert G. Williscroft. Now, let's look at the number 3 and 2 slots. They have the same title on them, and we can't tell which is the hardcover and which is the soft cover by looking at this list, but there's only 2 copies difference in how they're selling. And that's the number 2 and 3 slots held by Redemption, A Father's Fatal Decision by Gwen M. Plano. That's a kind of a supernatural Christian thriller, which is going over very well. Initial sales are really taking off. And like I say, only 2 copies difference between the hardcovers and softcovers. And as far as I can tell, it could be the hardcovers that's outselling. So this is another book now that's continuing to surprise us with the latest trend that's been happening maybe the last 6 months to a year of hardcovers, particularly of fiction, selling really well compared to the softcovers. A few years ago, if you sold a hardcover for every 10 softcovers, that was a well-performing hardcover. But now, if you can't stay neck and neck, then, that's to be expected. So, Redemption, A Father's Fatal Decision by Gwen M. Plano in the number 2 and 3 slots. And then, no surprise here, the number 1 slot, Submariner, 30 Years of Hijinks and Keeping the Fleet Afloat. Boy, say that fast 5 times. Keeping the Fleet Afloat by Jerry Pate. Submariner. That's a cool book. I highly recommend it. Anybody who's interested in submarine books, military stories, true life kind of stuff, that makes a great gift for them. So congratulations, everybody. Book sales are doing very well for February, which is usually a slow period, and we're happy to see these new entries like Redemption and The Calling Dream jump right into that list.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Operation Whiteout, the audiobook, I'm hard at work producing that. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm nearing the end, so that should be good to go here before too long. Keep your eyes on the newsletter and tuned into this podcast for all of the updates on that. But Operation Whiteout, the audiobook, a real fun project that should be out pretty soon. And if you've missed any of these episodes, or you're new to the show and you want to see what we're all about, or you have a favorite or 2 or 5 episodes, we have an archive. Every one of these shows rests in that archive just waiting for your ears to go tune into it. So here's how you can find us in the archives.
Find your favorite show in the Voice of Indie archives on YouTube at Fresh Ink Group, StephenGees.com, BeamWeeks.com, FreshInkGroup.com, and on Spotify. And now you can listen on iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and TuneIn. Just search The Voice of Indie, all one word.
Yeah. Now, over on Twitter, Robert Willis Cross jumped in and says, in Denver, we've had nearly a foot of the white stuff. Wow, I don't envy him a bit. It's going to get down to 64 degrees here tonight. A little bit chilly, but, man, I don't miss the snow, I'll tell you. And you got a note there from Verwayne?
I do. I see Verwayne. He's chiming in. He says, good evening. We finally got back into the upper 70s here in the armpit of Florida. Welcome to Robert and to Verwayne. We're always glad to have you guys in the audience. So
yeah, definitely. Okay,
cool.
So Beem, you want to go ahead and roll our first commercial for Karen's book, and then we'll introduce tonight's guest.
All right.
When Karen Ingalls was diagnosed with stage 2C ovarian cancer, she realized how little she knew about what was once called the silent killer. As Ingalls began to educate herself, she felt overwhelmed by the prevalent negativity of cancer. Lost in the information about drugs, side effects, and statistics, Ingalls redirected her energy to focus on the equally overwhelming blessings of life, learning to rejoice in each day and find peace in spirituality. In this memoir, Karen is a calming presence and positive companion, offering a refreshing perspective of hope with the knowledge that the beauty of the soul, the real me, and the real you outshines the effects of cancer, chemotherapy, and radiation. Proudly published by Fresh Ink Group in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook editions, the new second edition of Outshine, an ovarian cancer memoir, is a story of survival, a reminder that disease is not an absolute, but a challenge to overcome.
All right. And
that's a great book.
There will be a book trailer for that coming out soon. We have been hard at work on that, and I wanted to finish that this afternoon, but I was busy editing somebody else's book, so I kind of put that aside, and I'm going to try to get it done tomorrow. So keep your eyes open. It'll be up there on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? Get over there. YouTube. Fresh Ink Group.
Yeah.
Click subscribe.
Yeah, when we see somebody has subscribed over there, we get up and dance a jig. So that's worth the price of admission right there. So let's meet tonight's guest. Gwen M. Plano, who also goes by Gwendolyn M. Plano, which is on my list of beautiful favorite names, grew up in Southern California and spent most of her professional life in higher education. She taught and served as an administrator in colleges in Japan, New York, Connecticut, and California. Gwen's academic background is in theology and counseling. Recently retired, she now lives in the high desert of Arizona, where she writes, gardens, and travels with her husband. When Gwen is not writing, she's often in the beautiful red rocks of Sedona, where she finds inspiration. Welcome to the show, Gwen.
Welcome, Gwen.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
All right. So you landed in Arizona. What took you out that direction, and what's cool about it?
Well, my husband and I married 17 years ago, and for both of us, we had been married before, and so we have full families from prior marriage. And my children, adult children, are all in the Northeast area around New York, and his in California. And we had lived before in Branson together, an absolutely beautiful area. So in Branson, Missouri. But we knew we wanted to go to one side of the fence or the other to be closer to children. So then instead of Branson, we had to fly to California to see his, and then to New York to see mine. So by living in Arizona, it's an easy drive to go and see his side of the family, and then I fly to see mine. So it was one of those situations where you just work out, well, what works best for the two of us and for our families, where we can be around. Because I have 4 children, and 4 adult children and 4 grandchildren. And he has 3, but then he has, I think it's 8 grandchildren now. So you see, we try to go back and forth between the families.
Wow, that's great.
Anyway,
and that's a gorgeous drive, too, from there to California, isn't it?
It is. You know, you go through the desert, and you had asked me a second question, which I didn't respond to, I forgot, was in terms of what do I like about this area. And you said it in the very start in introducing me to, but the area is exquisite. It is absolutely beautiful. And one thing that I've never experienced anywhere else, and I've lived in multiple places, is the sky. I feel like when you're outside, you feel like you can touch it, like you can touch the clouds. And every day there's a beautiful sunset and sunrise. It's just extraordinary. I think part of it is because we're at 5,000 feet elevation. Maybe, you know, the sky looks closer when you're that high. But it's sort of magical, and I just love it here.
Now, being out there in the desert, so to speak, I can imagine, do you get a chance to step out in the evening and look at the night sky?
Absolutely. It's, in general, it's very rare that it's overcast, but in general, it's just like a blanket of stars. And at night, even if with the blinds closed and the curtains closed, I mean, you can see the light from the stars. That's what I mean. It's like, my goodness, it's very present, and it's something I hadn't experienced quite before.
Yeah, I love the night sky. In the summertime, it's too cold here in the wintertime. I mean, I'm not going out there when it's 10 degrees or, you know, even below 0 as it's been this winter. But in the summertime, I like to step outside because I live out in the country and just look at the sky and how beautiful it is with all those stars. But, you know, this is Michigan and you're out in the desert. And so I can only imagine the differences between Michigan and the desert.
Mm.
And it's, even though it's technically, I guess, desert, it's not like you have sand. It's not like you have, it's pastures that extend up to mountains. It's a little bit like what you see on films of Montana. I've not been to Montana, but it kind of looks like that area. So you'll see the wild antelope, which I dearly love. And, of course, the cattle and horses just, you know, they all coexist out in these pastures. It's fun to see.
So I'm going to quote you on that. Gwen M. Plano dearly loves the antelope. But you're right. I mean, you know, a lot of people picture sand as far as the eye can see. But one of the things I like about there is you look off in the distance and there will be a mesa rising up on the horizon, and, you know, cliffs and just red rocks and just all kinds of stuff. It's not a flat terrain at all. It's mixed. Everything's there.
Yes, it's true. Very true.
Right.
And
we have a couple of comments here already for Gwen on Twitter. We can throw those out. Joe Conjul says, "Good evening, everyone. Looking forward to Gwen Plano on the show." And then he says, "Hi, Gwen." Well, he's going to actually ask a question. We'll hold off on the question. We can come back to that. Just the comments here. And Marlena Smith Burris, she says, "Hi, Gwen. Excited to listen to tonight's show."
Oh, Marlena. Welcome, Marlena.
And Robert Willis says, "You should experience the Denver smog at a mile high."
Oh, dear.
Beautiful scenery around Denver, though.
He's got a question, but we can come back to that when we get into talking about the books and whatnot.
Yeah, we're going to talk specifically about that book too, so that'd be a good time for that one. So thanks for the question, Joe. We're going to hold you off just a little bit on it. So Gwen, we've mentioned recently on the show a couple of times about Story Empire, and we made a trailer, a promotional video for it recently too that we're starting to put out there more and more because we are hardcore supporters and believers in Story Empire and your contributions to it, Gwen. For people who aren't familiar, will you tell us what Story Empire is and why people want to be involved?
Well, for one thing, it's like a group or a family almost of friends that all happen to be writers. So it is a very supportive community. And when one is struggling with one issue or another, whether it's family or their writing, the others join in to assist. It's just a very supportive community. There are 12 writers, all very strongly published in various genres. And the full intent, as I said, was support, and also to share their findings on writing. And so they put out a blog 3 times a week, and all of us alternate in with our subject matter and with covering that blog. But the whole intention of that blog is to share part of each of our own experience with the writing journey. I've learned so much through it, I have to say, and through the writers themselves, because they're all people I respect, and that includes you and Beem. Just very much feel at home with the community that they've created for all of us.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Stephen and I are part of that as well. You've been there longer. How did you become involved with this?
I got an invitation, and it was actually John Howell who got hold of me and asked if I would want to join. I had been in another book club, and I had other questions because I had left the other book club, and I found out this gathering is more than a book club. It's not. In fact, I wouldn't even think of it in that way. I think of it as serious writers who have come together to support one another in the art of writing. And I think how each have even explained themselves at times and shared even some of their writings, you can see exactly what I mean in terms of the art of writing. And I extend that to the two of you as well, because you're tremendous writers. So it's one thing that's beautiful about it too. There isn't competition, which I would not be drawn to, but there is none. It's only if somebody needs an extra hand, figurative hand, it's extended. There's never a sense of pressure. It's always it's an inspirational group, frankly, for me. I sit back and I'm inspired by what they write and how they write and just who they are as people. So it's a supportive community that reaches out through the blog and website and their own work to writers everywhere, and then those who love reading. So I don't know that there's another group like this one.
I've never heard of one.
Yeah, it's a wonderful group of people. It really is.
Yeah.
Now, how can people find Story Empire online and subscribe to the blog?
I think you just go on to storyempire.com, and it's easy to sign up. And they have a huge following. So it's just easy. Just go on to storyempire.com, and you can go to the blog. You can sign on there, but you can also go and look at each writer's publications and a little tidbit about each one of them, so you can get to know them a bit. It's very easy, and I invite everybody to come join. It's a fun experience.
Yeah, it's free, it's easy, it's fun. I mean, you could always unsubscribe if you wanted to, but who would do that, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So no risk at all. Go check it out. Subscribe for a little bit. Check out some of the blogs that are already posted there. It's got a fabulous archives that goes back a ways with all of these posts. And we're talking 3 posts a week from 3 different writers every week. So throughout the month, you wind up getting at least 13 posts. That's pretty good.
All right. There's a couple more relevant comments to the show right now. Joan Hall, she says, "Hello, Gwen. Love your comments about the night skies in the desert. And she also says, we are delighted to have Gwen on board with Story Empire, but we don't want Stephen and Beem anymore. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
She says, as well as Stephen and Beem. We've been fired on the air.
Yeah. I kind of doubt that because I'm hosting Joan Hall's guest blog post tomorrow on my blog, so
I know
she has to be nice to me at least through tomorrow night.
No, she said
she's always nice.
They're happy to have us all on there. So and it's
always,
like I said, they're just a wonderful group of wonderful human beings. So it's an honor to be part of that.
Yeah, and in case anybody missed it, that was a bit of a shout out there. StephenG's.wordpress.com tomorrow is going to have a guest post from Joan Hall talking about her new book.
People.
So get over there and check it out. Like, comment, subscribe. Put money in an envelope and make it out to me. Whatever moves you.
Go check out Joan's stuff as well. So. Yeah. Great.
Now, Gwen, you told us a little bit about your family. It was basically a recitation of some very impressive statistics there with the numbers between you and your husband. But your boys, let's talk about your boys for a minute. They left New York for a little while and found another place in the world that's quite cool. And I was lucky enough to see a photo, which was spectacular. What happened there? Where'd they go?
Well, my boys, I have 3 sons and a daughter, and 2 of my sons decided to join these other young men to go to Patagonia. And they went in November. Yes, they hiked for close to 100 miles. And, I had used the expression about being able to touch the sky. Well, I think they could. And their stories are pretty amazing. It made me so happy. It still does. And I keep a photo right by me because seeing them happy and exploring the beauty of this earth, well, nothing makes a mom happier than that.
Yeah.
It was really, it's pretty remarkable. I think just going down to Patagonia, just even the journey that took them there, and then, of course, climbing. They didn't climb mountains, but hike up mountains. It's an amazing journey, so.
Yep, and you're right about the sky. You're close enough to the sky up on those mountains in Patagonia that you can get sky under your fingernails. It's there. It's just
happen.
right there on you. Yeah.
Grab handfuls of blue.
Well, good for them. It's
amazing.
great that they got to make a trip like that and share it with their mom and their families and stuff as well. And they've got stories to tell from now on. And someday the grandkids and the next generation beyond them may say, we need to go to Patagonia and see what Dad saw. Things like that, too.
Yeah,
so,
I think
cool.
so.
Yeah. So, at some point here, we should probably start talking about Gwen's books, and we've got a bunch of commercials to play. So, what do you think? You want to start with playing the commercial for her memoir, and then maybe Joe Concho might have a question about it.
All right.
Inspiring and unforgettable, Letting Go into Perfect Love is a riveting account of a journey through the terror of domestic violence to a faith that transforms all. As a college administrator, Gwen M. Plano lived her professional life in a highly visible and accountable space. But as a wife and mother behind closed doors, she and her family experienced unpredictable threat. Every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is assaulted or beaten. But to Gwen, this was her secret. It was her shame. Alternately, heart-wrenching and joyful, this is a story of triumph over adversity. One woman's uplifting account of learning how to forgive the unforgivable, recover her sense of self, bring healing into her family, and honor the journey home. Accompanied by glimpses of celestial beings, Gwen charts a path through sorrow to joy, and ultimately writes of the one perfect love we all seek. Gwen's story is heartbreakingly familiar. It provides insight into the phenomenon of domestic violence. Understanding that murky world may provide the reader with the skills to help his or her sister or friend or neighbor. Whether victim or friend, readers will be inspired by the author's courage. Letting Go into Perfect Love by Gwen M. Plano is available now as a Fresh Ink Group edition in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook editions. The Audible audiobook edition is also available at Amazon. Order your copy now, and you may see your own challenges a little differently.
That's a terrific memoir. It really is heartfelt and just full of, you have to empathize with it. No matter what your situation is or what your own journey is, you have to ride along with Gwen and feel that. Now, Gwen, in a case like this, when you write a book like this, you put it out there, it's good for other people to see the story, to learn, to maybe identify with it, see themselves and things like that. And there's no question about that. That's something that's the kind of story that even should outlast us and be out there for posterity someday. But also, was it something that helped you? Was that part of your journey as well? Did it do something to help you make some progress as well?
Actually, yes. And I could probably say that about every book I've written for different purposes and in different ways. But with the memoir, that I wrote, let me backtrack and say that over the years I kept journals. And journaling became a way for me to try to process my experience. And one of the things that people often think of if they've never experienced violence or been in an unhealthy situation is that why wouldn't the woman leave? Why would you stay in such a marriage? And part of what I tried to do in this book was to show why they don't. I didn't want to do, an autobiography or something where you were just in one account after another account of whatever. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to answer that question. And what happens in these settings is that a person loses themselves. They no longer are there. That doesn't sound real, but it's the truth. And it's not just in a setting like I was in, but you can find it in other marriages where a person might be abusive through alcohol or other things. The partner, if she stays, as I stayed for 25 years, you're just not there. You die inside. You're a mannequin. And that is something not understood. As many times as I went to counselors, and I went to plenty, every time one of them said, you have to divorce, at that moment I ended the counseling. Until, you see, I got to a point where I was ready. One of my kids was nearly killed. And at that point, it was over. There wasn't a chance I was going to let one of my kids be hurt like that. But through writing, by going through these steps and looking at it carefully, I became whole. It's a process of writing, of putting something down, helps anybody, I think, anybody process aspects of their lives, aspects of their dreams. It takes them through situations, whether we write something that's fictional or not, doesn't matter, where we are the one doing it and we're processing. So this book did that. It did, just as you said, Gary, it offered a chance to bridge, to heal. And I hoped, as I wrote it, as I sorted through the information and selected out, that it would offer that same for anybody, any reader. Because you don't have to go through, you don't have to have my experience. Every life, I believe this deeply, every life has hurdles. All of us. We're just, unfortunately, we are faced with trials that can totally overwhelm us. And this book, as I wrote it, I was hoping, well, maybe this can help a person if they're ever in that place of feeling overwhelmed or that life was something they couldn't manage. That in that desperate place, they would say, okay, there is a way. I can get through this. And so that was my hope as I wrote, and to show the path of healing, really.
Yeah, I see that as a very, very unselfish act, because you can accomplish a lot just writing the journals or writing the book and keeping it to yourself or just sharing it with people that you know. But that's putting your private life out there. That's putting some of your heartache and some of the things that were the hardest for you to deal with, and to make that public as an act of sharing with others and seeing what it can do for other people too, I think is just one of the great aspirations of being a writer. And I'm proud of you for having done that, and proud that Fresh Ink Group is even involved in helping you get your second edition of that out there. That's the kind of book we really highly regard, and we appreciate you doing that, Gwen.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you know, you talk about everybody has struggles, and that's so true. And a lot of times people are going through the struggles, they think they're alone, and they're not. And I have this quote, and it's just just a little few. That's a line. It's strength comes from the struggle. And I've got that written on the inside of my Bible, because this is, and it's true. Whether you're lifting weights or, you know, when you lift weights, you're damaging the muscle because you're pumping iron, and your muscles hurt after you're done. But over a period of time, you see you're building muscle, you're becoming stronger in that, and that's life. I mean, that's sort of a picture of life. We're going to go through struggles. We're going to go through things that, you know, some people don't come out of. They don't make it out of there because they've become, as you said, you become so overwhelmed by it. But, you know, when you do come out of it, you're stronger for it. And I think by you writing this memoir shows you got strength from it, and where you're at now, you got stronger from it coming out of it.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I think I love your phrase. You know, I love that phrase. Strength comes from struggle. I think it's true on many levels, Beem. It's you emerge a different person. If you tackle your struggles, whatever they are, you emerge a different person. And I think that's why we're given these. I mean, I don't think God tosses out, you know, one struggle to another, but
no.
Life is no. I think
that's the
life,
roadmap. That's just what's in front of us.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a strange gift, because through the struggle itself, you emerge strong. You emerge clearer vision. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic, but it's true.
And I like the point you made earlier, too, about you can also do that with fiction. A lot of people do that with fiction. They're working through personal things and dealing with issues and struggles and all that, and imbuing their characters with that, and learning about themselves and their own strengths in the process of making up a story. And I think that's a terrific thing about fiction writers, the good ones who really, really think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You know, and I like that you say you come out of this a different person. And I think that's the whole goal in life in general. You come out of these struggles a different person, a changed person. And there are people that I've known for a long time that are the same persons they were when we were in school together. They haven't matured, and, you know, you can still see it in some of their behavior and whatnot. It's like, this person needs a struggle. They really do. They need a struggle in their life to get stronger and to emerge as a different person. And it's not necessarily saying that them being the same person they were is a bad thing, but there's that immature part of it that, come on, man, grow up.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Now, we got a couple of comments over on Twitter. Joan Hall followed up her comment where she said, "We are delighted to have Gwen on board with Story Empire, as well as Beem and Stephen." Then she accused me of eating all the snacks. So I didn't know she caught me. We only meet virtually, so they're virtual snacks, but apparently there were some virtual crumbs around my mouth. So, Joan, you got me. You got a comment from Verwayne, Beem?
He says, "I enjoy the articles I get from Story Empire blogs and those that are reblogged. There is always something interesting to read there." Yes, there is.
Yeah. And then Marlena Smith-Burris added, regarding Story Empire, "Well said. It's such an incredible resource for writers no matter where you are in your journey." All right, those are some rousing endorsements.
Yeah. Now, we just talked about the memoir, and I think this is a good place to slide Joe Conjo's question in here. He says, "Hi, Gwen. Since your first book was a memoir, what got you interested in writing thrillers after that?" See, we can use this as a segue.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one, Joe. Thank you for asking. It wasn't that I was drawn to thrillers in the beginning. I had only read John Howe's books, and I think that was it in terms of thrillers. Waking up at 1:30 at night, and this is no joke, 1:30 at night, sometimes it might have been 2, and I'd have these clear images. It wasn't like a vision. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in my mind. I already had this image, and it kept scenes from a story, which ended up being military thrillers, 3 of them. But I would have the scenes very clearly there. And I thought, what in the world? I'm the most unlikely person anywhere, I think, to write a thriller, or at least a military one. But nevertheless, this kept happening. And then I finally got hold of John Howe, because I knew him through the book club I was in, and asked if he'd like to co-write with me. And the reason I did that, and I was terrified to ask, because I thought, oh, he's going to think I'm a nutcase. But anyway, the reason I did it is I knew he knew how to write a thriller. I didn't. And he jumped right in and said, yeah, let's do it. And we started off, and we started sharing stories, and he became a mentor. That's effectively what he was for me, besides a friend. When you write together, you become a friend, or else you're going to be in a bad fix if you aren't a friend. But anyway, we started off with writing, sharing what I was hearing or seeing as I woke up, these scenes that I would have. And the first book was one that dealt with heaven, the celestial realm and the earthly realm, and this the problems that were developing on Earth. But in any case, he jumped in and added things that were pretty amazing, made it a whole book. And then the next one came along too, and that one was right on a military base. And again, he worked with me, but then as it went on, he ended up had another book he was working on, so I completed that one, but he was working through it with me. Then the third book, The Culmination,
now, Gwen, before
Yes.
you jump into that third one, let's go ahead and play the commercial for those first 2. And we'll
All
get
right.
that a little more familiar in people's minds, and then we can move to the third one.
Okay, so that's the choice.
The choice.
And culmination.
No, the choice. No, the choice covers them both.
And then okay, because we got the culmination here as well.
Yeah, right now, just the choice.
So I understand that.
Best-selling author Gwen M. Plano presents The Choice, The Unexpected Heroes, Book 2 in her Heaven and Earth thriller trilogy. In the first book, co-penned by best-selling author John W. Howell, the Earth is threatened with a catastrophic event, and Heaven's leadership intervenes with extraordinary measures to ensure the survival of the planet. 2 souls volunteer to return to Earth and take human form as Brad Channing and Sarah O'Brien. The Choice picks up where the first book ends, at an Air Force base in Northern California. The base commander invites Brad's former Navy SEAL instructors to help him determine who is behind 2 very personal murders. Their deaths are part of a bigger plan, and the commander urgently needs to thwart that plan. Implicated are key Washington, D.C. officials. A confidential team uncovers a treacherous conspiracy that has as its goal world domination. The pressing question is, who can be trusted and who cannot? Grab your copy now of The Choice, The Unexpected Heroes by Gwen M. Plano. Available worldwide in hardcover, paperback, and all major ebook formats. The Choice is proudly published by Fresh Ink Group.
All right, so that covers The Contract with John W. Howell. And those of you who aren't familiar with John W. Howell, you should get out there and discover his other books, including his newest release, which is The Last Ride, I believe is the title of that.
Yeah.
He's got some excellent books. John is not just an excellent writer, but he's a good guy. We all like John and try to support him, and he's definitely a supporter of the independent writers community. So everybody should check that out. And then the second book, The Choice, Gwen M. Plano is the only name on it. As well as the third book. Now, Gwen, when you went from book 2 and 3, by the time you got to the culmination, was it pretty much seamless? You were flying, you knew what you were doing, it was all falling into place, or were you still having some fun with the learning?
Well, I knew what I was doing this time. However, I've never learned as much as I learned with the culmination, and there's a reason. The book takes place at the Turkey-Syrian border. I've never been to Turkey. So you can imagine even now with a 7.8 magnitude earthquake, what impact that might have on me, because I lived that area figuratively. I lived in that area for months upon months. And when this earthquake hit, it really shook me to my core. But why I said I had a lot that I learned from this book is I did tremendous research. I can't even calculate how many hours I put into research. And the reason was there was so much information related to the political, to governments, that were at odds with one another. I ended up taking 5 newspapers, subscribing to 5. I was on several military blog sites daily. I followed deployments. I have one entire wall, I still do, that is covered with huge maps of the Middle East, Europe, Asia, Russia, Persian Gulf in particular. I plotted the deployments as I learned of them. That isn't that I would necessarily use those locations in the book. It was more for me to understand where our forces were moving, in the Persian Gulf and around. I also went in and studied level 4 labs, and if you don't know what that is, those are the deadliest. Those labs study the deadliest pathogens anywhere, and there's about 60 of them in the world, one of them being in Wuhan. But I'll tell you a story with all of this. I first just want to make the point I immersed myself. I understood how to write a thriller, and I knew what my story was going to be. However, I had to immerse myself so deeply because I needed to feel that I was fair and representing the countries and the dynamics, the tensions correctly. I checked things out with one of my cousins who's a lieutenant colonel in the Army. And in my family, I also have a lot of folks who were in the military. So I tried in all ways I could, because this one book is, it's not even in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, the Syrian border. I'll mention a couple of things, though, about this. Just north of the border in Turkey, a few miles actually, there's a town, the city of Adana. And in that city, on the outskirts, is the Incirlik Air Base. That is an American air base that's located in Turkey. The people, they don't want it there. Plenty of people don't want that air base there. But it's principally because of what's on that base. There are 50 nuclear bombs. So most people are unaware that we're sitting there in this base in a country that doesn't want us there. And we have 50 nuclear bombs. That is intense. And so in the book, I try to capture some of that tension. And certainly when the earthquake had hit, I was on, some of the blog sites trying to find out, military blog sites, to find out what happened on the base. Because those nuclear bombs are scary to me, But what I found was a statement that all airmen were accounted for and the structures were intact. So that's good. But I guess what I'm wanting to say with all of this, it was an immersion that I never could have anticipated. One thing led to the next. And I learned to do research, that's for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good skill to have, though, for a writer. Because, the old line is, write what you know. And I did a blog piece on Story Empire about writing what you don't know. And that's where the whole research thing comes in, because you don't know that part of the world, but yet you want to write it to make it sound like you've actually been there.
Absolutely. And you want it to be accurate. I mean, I don't want to misrepresent anyone. And that's why I was possessed, I think, from that. Overwhelming, yes. But as I said, I learned immensely. It absolutely was a transformative book for me. And because I didn't stop there, by the way, I also looked at our senators and their committees and investments. Oh, my goodness. I looked into military contracts. I mean, I'm talking, it just one thing led to the next. But it's, and I also just have to say, in case someone wants to read The Culmination, it's an unlikely love story. So with all of this intense material, at the same time, it's held together by a love story. And the love story takes place between a young American female president and a young male president in Russia. So that's why I say it's unlikely. But these two are idealists, and basically they want to bring the countries together to work things through, to negotiate, to build a world that's one we will all love. So that's what the intention was with Culmination.
Oh, that's cool. So let's play the commercial and hear what it's about.
Best-selling author Gwen M. Plano presents The Culmination, A New Beginning, the final book in the Contract thriller series. In the first book, co-penned by best-selling author John W. Howell, the Earth is threatened with a catastrophic event, and Heaven's leadership intervenes with extraordinary measures to ensure the survival of the planet. In Book 2, The Choice, a confidential team uncovers a traitorous conspiracy that has as its goal world domination. The pressing question is, who can be trusted and who cannot? The Culmination, A New Beginning, brings the Contract thriller trilogy to a close. After an assassination attempt on an Air Force base in Northern California, tensions mount. Heads of state meet to craft a denuclearization agreement. The meetings between these nuclear powers take a murderous turn. A nefarious conspiracy reemerges and leads the characters into the heart of the Middle East, where they encounter the unexpected and find a reason for hope. Grab your copy now of The Culmination, A New Beginning by Gwen M. Plano. Available worldwide in hardcover, paperback, and all major ebook formats. The Culmination is proudly published by Fresh Ink Group.
What a coincidence, too, that where this earthquake just happened is right in the heart of all that area that you researched and got to know so well.
That's so true. It's amazing,
yeah,
actually.
That earthquake coverage has been kind of hard to watch. The the image seared in my mind for days was the father holding his crushed daughter's hand.
Oh, I know.
He wouldn't leave her there and stuff. But I finally replaced that image last night. I don't know if any of you saw it, but they found puppies. Puppies in the rubble.
Oh. Wow.
No, they found puppies in the rubble last night, and as they dug down to them, there were like 4 or 5 little puppies kind of knotted together in this little circle, and they looked like they were protecting something. And when they managed to get their hands on them and pull a couple of the puppies away, they were protecting 2 young kittens. All 5 of them there together like that, and they managed to survive all this time. So that's a beautiful image that comes out of that.
I saw they had pulled a 19-year-old boy out of the rubble, and he was still alive after 8 days.
Wow.
That was pretty amazing. Now, the night that all happened, I usually, get online for, 10 minutes to see what's the final news of the day, so to speak, and I saw that, and I was seeing some of the images coming out of Turkey, and the one that was seared in my mind was heartbreaking was 2 little boys and a little girl. The little girl was probably maybe a year and a half old, and the boys were 2 and 3, or 3 and a half, somewhere in there. They were just toddlers, basically, and they all 3 had been killed in this. And the parents had the babies just sitting there, and they didn't know what to do. And it was heartbreaking. Just
wow.
Now, before we move on to the next subject here, Gwen, the whole idea about the research, that had to have been quite in depth, because you're not just dealing with 2 countries. Syria and Turkey, you're dealing with several different cultures, because you got the Turkish culture, you got the Syrians, but you got the Kurds there as well, and so that's probably took a lot of time to get that part right too, because as you said, you wanted an accurate representation.
Yes, it was a very deep learning experience, and as I said, it was transformative. I'll leave it at that. It truly was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go ahead. Go ahead.
How about what kind of fan reaction, readers?
But before you do that, we've got one more book, Redemption. Let's go ahead and play the commercial for that, and then we'll talk about the new book, the one that's in pre-sale right now.
I don't want to forget about that one.
Family secrets can be deadly. When Lisa visits her parents one fateful Saturday morning, she hugs her father and takes her suitcase to her childhood bedroom. The doorbell rings, and 1 minute later, her father lies dead on the floor, 3 bullets to the chest. The death of Eric Holmes sends shockwaves throughout the quiet neighborhood. But for the Holmes family, it's devastating. In this fast-paced psychological thriller, Lisa and her brother embark on a quest to solve the mystery of their father's murder. The journey takes them into a secret world where nothing is as it seems. Once the puzzle pieces begin to coalesce, they realize that their father had multiple lives. As the facts unravel, the siblings discover the true meaning of redemption. Gwen M. Plano's Redemption is available worldwide in softcover, jacketed hardcover, and all ebook formats. Published proudly by Fresh Ink Group. Redemption by Gwen M. Plano.
All right, the new one.
Yes.
So where did this story idea come from?
Oh goodness. Well, it really was a movement from the global to the personal. And again, the story started developing early in the morning. And I think partly for me why it happens in the early morning is because it's so quiet then, and that includes my brain. But anyway, it's quiet, and it's easier to hear because I tend to listen. That's what I'm doing. I'm listening, trying to understand what is it I'm feeling. But redemption is a movement from the global to the personal. I think the story is a very similar one in that its focus is on forgiveness. And in the culmination, as I mentioned, the 2 presidents were trying to do that with the different countries. But this helps to see it better because each of us, we don't live for the most part internationally, and we have little we can cast a vote in the United States, but what kind of impact does that have? But we can impact our lives, and that is what the story tries to show. So through this seemingly undistinguished family living on a quiet street, we are brought into the father's secretive life. And as you just heard, in the first page of the book, the father is killed. And then the two adult children have to unravel the mystery and try to find out why this occurred. And in the end, as they go, they confront their own anger, their own fear, and their disillusionment. And then they deal with forgiveness. Can they forgive or not forgive? And it's a real struggle. And that is what goes through, just to get back to Beem's word, but it's a struggle that they go through. And in the end, face also the redemptive part. You have the aggrieved and you have the offender. And both require actions. I watched this thing on television. It was a courtroom scene in which a young woman had been murdered. The father of that girl stands up in this court and says, "I forgive you." He says that to the, murderer. But you know what?
Wow.
I got chills when I heard that. And you know why? Yes, what he said was powerful, but I don't believe it. And I'll tell you why. I think forgiveness it's a struggle. You work to get to that place of forgiveness. And I thought, well, this good man stood up and said that, and in his head, he forgave. In his heart, I am saying absolutely he has a long road ahead of him.
Yeah, that's life.
Yeah, that is life. And so this is what this book shows, that struggle that these two adult children had, and then they confront and face the whole concept of redemption. So the global things I've been writing were the inspiration, I guess, but I was a counselor for years, and I listened to everyone's struggles, and really a great percentage of it dealt with unforgiveness. Who doesn't struggle with that? And so,
so anyway. With the whole thing with forgiveness, it sounds so simple, and even Jesus said, if you must forgive those who have harmed you, otherwise your Father in heaven will not forgive you. And you think, oh, well, that's an easy thing to do. Well, all right, you're forgiven. But, and like you said, that guy forgave in his head, but there are times that people that I forgive them and so on and so forth, but in your heart that it creeps back in what they did to you. And that's a hard thing to get past at times, even when you're telling yourself, no, forget about it. I've forgiven this person. Let's move on. But that still will creep in from time to time. And it's a life struggle. It really is.
So might this be the first book of a new series, Gwen?
Well, I have no intention. But, I did it with the
But
first
that's never
book.
stopped a writer.
But anyway, I'm glad you explained it as you did, Beem, because that's true. And it's for us towards this forgiveness to let go each time, to come to our own peace and let that go. And then as it resurrects, if it does, then go through the process again. But it's definitely a process. Yeah,
exactly. So you might have to forgive somebody 52 times for the same thing.
That's true. That's true. You might.
All right.
So what kind of fan reaction have you had from your books, Gwen? Like, have you heard from people who thought that letting go into perfect love was especially poignant for them, or are you hearing from thriller fans? What kind of feedback do you get about your work?
Well, curiously, even though the Kindle version of Redemption isn't out yet. The paperback is, so it kind of surprised all of us that it came out. Well, I've already heard from 2 people, actually 3, who have read the book and were deeply moved by it, which of course made me happy, because I think most of us writers, we write and then wonder, oh no, have I just spent my life writing this and for no reason? But there was a great reason in writing this for me. And I think that's true for all writers, that each book helps them or is transformative in some way. But to your point, your question, I've already heard personally from 2 people. One I have never met, but she got hold of me to explain, and I didn't have enough gumption, I guess, to say, well, how about writing a review? But she contacted me through email and explained how much she appreciated the book. And she thought she thought it should be a movie. That's kind of her to say. I don't know the woman, as I said, but that was her response.
Well, that's always
good
great.
That you don't know her.
Yeah.
Because then that makes it more, it's not a friend who's just saying something. Not that friends do that, but,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, for sure.
Well, we're running out of time here, Gwen. Do you have some advice for authors out there? Word is there's a couple of authors out there at least listening, and we're always looking for suggestions from somebody who's good at putting together poignant tales like you are.
I'm not one to give advice about writing, except I think that each of us on life's journey need to follow our hearts. And if writing is part of that, then let it flow. I mean, I don't, if people worry about a lot of things with writing, and I think let yourself speak, your heart speak, and that's enough right there.
Well said.
All right. So, how can people find you on social media? How can they contact you? Twitter, blog, website, Facebook, Instagram?
Story Empire.
Story Empire.
That's true. Story Empire is right. Also, I have a blog, and my website is just gwenplano.com. So that's easy. And on that website is the blog, and that's a way. And I'm on Facebook, but only randomly. I'm more on Twitter, and that's just GM Plano on Twitter.
Right.
Okay. If someone wanted to send you a note, is there a contact form on your website? Or, as always, they can always send Fresh Ink Group a note, and we'll make sure you get it. But do you have something more direct?
Not really. Sorry.
Okay. Well, listen, listeners, any guests that we have on this show, if you ever want to get a message to them or ask a question or something after a show is over, we have a contact form at freshinkgroup.com. Just send a note, and we'll make sure we talk to that person. And we know how to get a hold of Gwen. In fact, we're trying to figure out how we can plan a trip out to Arizona and see the lizards and the mesas and the sky that you can touch. That would be very cool.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, we've had Gwen M. Plano on the show today. Her newest book is Redemption, A Father's Fatal Decision, and it's out there now for pre-sale, except that Amazon, which is getting to where it has no respect for release dates, will actually go ahead and ship the print book to you.
Send it right to you.
Yeah, just send it right to you like we don't care about dates. So, get that book, get out there, and help us spread the word about Gwen's work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, next week, we're going to have Carlisle Toms, who's the author of The Calling Dream. We talked about that earlier, and let's listen to the commercial. And then after that?
After that, we have A.K. Wingler, the food truck lady. She's coming back to talk about her third food truck book in the series, and this one's from Tennessee. So tune in for that.
Yeah, and she's working on Alabama and Texas and some others too. So you might have some questions about those, or ask her, when are you going to get to my state? Because she's covering the whole U.S. with food truck how-to, along with her website, which
I wonder if she's going to do a food truck Alaska. That might be cold.
Oh, okay. All right, and then the week after that, we've got Karen Ingalls. We talked earlier about her second edition of her memoir, Outshine, an ovarian cancer memoir, and she's got a bunch of events coming up, too, so we can talk to her about those. And then we've got a couple of slots we need to fill, and then after that?
And we're working on filling those, and then after that is Cheryl Carpinello will be our guest, and I don't know much about her, but we're going to find out together. So tune in for that. And after that,
Cheryl, I believe, is a Colorado Authors League member as well, and a key player in the Colorado Authors League is Jody Bowersox, and she's going to be our guest the week after Cheryl Carpinello. So we'll get to talk to some Colorado authors here a couple of weeks in a row, and that we're looking forward to that being a lot of fun. So, thanks again to Gwen M. Plano for being on the show today. Gwen,
Thank
it's
you,
always
Gwen.
a delight talking to you.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, and a minute ago I misspoke. I said we listened to The Calling Dream earlier. We haven't listened to it yet, but on our way out, we'll go ahead and play The Calling Dream before our close. And everybody, thanks for participating, all of you on Twitter, and all of you who subscribe to the newsletter, and go over and subscribe to the Fresh Ink Group channel on YouTube. You're our heroes. And we'll see everybody the next time.
See you next week, everybody.
All right. Bye, Gwen.
Bye,
Gwen.
Bye now.
In 1945, 10-year-old Ronald Dennison, the son of a backwoods Arkansas preacher, began having profound dreams about religion and a strange red-haired woman. The dreams follow him for decades, with the woman sometimes seducing him, other times calling him to become a televangelist, but eventually berating him for his sins of lust. She holds a secret so dark that he dares never admit it, even to himself. The more famous and wealthier he becomes, the more he struggles with his adultery, his fetish, and his shame, until his torment can no longer be contained. Staggering revelations challenge everything he ever believed. Will truth bring him the peace he always craved? Or will the woman's demands prove more than he can bear? Read the novel The Calling Dream by Carlisle Thoms. Proudly published by Fresh Ink Group in hardcover, softcover, and all e-book formats. The Calling Dream by Carlisle Thoms.
You've been a part of Voice of Indy, a production of Fresh Ink Group. Spread the word, support our guests, then find us at freshinkgroup.com and be sure to hashtag Fresh Ink Group.